kind of way that telemedicine is going to perform, this is a Babylon's platform, which will come out this year. You're seeing a myriad of technologies. There's facial recognition, the spatial awareness using AI looking at people's emotions, giving the doctor some indication of that consultation. There's natural voice processing that's going on, and it goes voice to text, so you're not having to type out your consultation. At the same time, the AI is analyzing the results of the conversation to give you predictability of the diagnosis. Suddenly, the time spent doing consultations is much better. We're too expensive as doctors. That face-to-face contact is too expensive. How do we overcome it? This is now going to be the way we interact in the future. So suddenly, everything is in real time with many technologies converging. But of course, we forget about the power of our own voices. Our own voices are hugely flexible in how we promote, how we intonate, how we tell a story, if you like. But also, of course, it has vocal biomarkers. Our voice possesses biomarkers that could be used in the future. What if we took Babylon's model further and added Alexa or a homegrown kind of device like the Google Home or Alexa as the interface for that voice technology?
Hi Alexa, I want to speak to Babylon.
Hello Louise, how can I help you?
Well, I've been feeling a bit dizzy recently.
I'm sorry to hear that. Can you tell me a bit more? Do you feel like the room is spinning, or are you feeling faint?
Yeah, sometimes it feels like the room's spinning.
And have you noticed any hearing loss?
Yeah, I have actually.
Do you have a ringing, buzzing, or humming sound in one or both ears?
Yeah, both ears. It's horrible.
Do you have any pain in your ears?
No.
Have you had a fever?
No, none.
Have you noticed any discharge coming out of your ears?
No.
Looking at your user graph, I can see you had glandular fever a few months ago.
Oh yeah, that was awful.
For how long have you been unwell with these symptoms now?
A couple of months.
Finally, have you noticed that your ears are feeling full or blocked?
Yes, actually.
I think I might know what's been causing your symptoms. It is most likely to be Meniere's disease, a condition of the inner ear that can affect balance and hearing. It could also be labyrinthitis, an infection of the nerve in the ear. Meniere's disease needs a specialist opinion and might be helped with some medicine to reduce the dizziness, so I'd recommend talking to one of our GPs.
Sure, sounds good.
Dr. Garcha is available straight away, and according to your calendar, so are you. Would you like me to book your appointment?
Yes, please.
All booked. Your phone will ring in just a minute when the appointment starts.
So that's kind of connecting the dots. That's kind of the possibility of that future, how voice technology enabled systems can communicate with you at home in real time, allowing you to have a diagnosis and perhaps even offer you treatment. But also maybe offering you access to pharmacy and getting you drugs delivered to your door. It's all going to be connected, of course, in the future. This is a glimpse what AI might offer going forward. But of course, the vocal biomarkers we discussed are more powerful. There's a company called Beyond Verbal, who's now actually called Vocalis Health, looking at emotions within your vocal biomarkers. This seminal study done a while ago showed that just by looking at your sound, i.e. if you speak to your smartphone on a regular basis into app 1 or 2 minutes a day, it picks up the intonations of vocal biomarkers. And for patients with, say, heart disease, it can predict the onset of cardiac failure 2 weeks before it arises, allowing you to get treatment prior to reducing admission, for example, and get treatment before having a complication. So actually the voice might be also another huge kind of metric for us to use in AI going forward. And of course, there's all this concept now about drug discovery and drug molecules, and the science around pharma is changing. Huge amount of investment going, of course. We know drug discovery takes a while, from looking at the molecules, looking at how they might interact, looking at the complications that might give a patient, then doing phase 1 trials once you design the drug, then phase 2, and then to clinical practice. This all takes a long time, of course. But of course, there's many companies now trying to refigure this, trying to make it easier and more acceptable. And actually, we could spend a whole day speaking about pharma and its disruption, as it needs to improve the way the drugs are delivered much faster. But you might have seen this only about a week. This was the January the 30th, only a few days ago. And John knows, of course, that so this is the first time that AI was used in producing a drug. So companies, Accenture, a British company, and another counterpart pharma company in Japan called Denipon, actually designed a drug for phase 1 trial within 12 months to treat OCD. That process normally takes 5 years on average. So you reduce that burden to 12 months as opposed to 5 years. The clinical trials can be done much more rapidly, and we've seen the American FDA, for example, implement change at pace. I was involved with the FDA a few years ago, where they were looking at innovation at pace, and we gave them ideas about how they could do that in terms of regulatory bodies, and where AI might be an issue going forward, which we'll discuss in a moment. The real picture, of course, is diagnostics. We know that that's the biggest one that AI is going to disrupt. We always talk about radiologists going out of fashion, or being replaced, or being augmented, etc. People talk about this concept of being replaced. Doctors will be replaced by AI. Let's get away from that slightly. We're going to be augmented. We're going to be supported. We're going to be helped in our clinical practice. We won't be replaced, not for a long time. So that conversation piece has to be the right one. If you say to our patients, we're going to be replaced, it scares them. That terminology, that words we use, scares people. What we're saying is we facilitate, we augment, we improve our clinical practice. Your doctors work better. That's the conversation we need to have with the patients. So the patients are the key in this, and that conversation and adoption by them is going to be critical to our success, of course. Now, who has a stethoscope in the audience? Anybody? So you should throw it away. It's a waste of time. What you when I first started, I'm a surgeon, so we never use a stethoscope, as you know, right? But it's what you do with it. You listen for your heart sounds, maybe some absent breath sounds, or maybe some crackles in the base of the lungs. It's very tiny. What do you do next? You have an ultrasound scan. You create images that are much more reliable than your human subjective ability. If anyone here has actually heard tactile vocal fremitus, please tell me. I've never heard it to this day, and I've been around for a long time. It's archaic. It's old-fashioned. We're stuck with dogma and tradition. We have a stethoscope around our neck. Absolutely useless piece of equipment. We're moving on. The new generation of doctors won't have a stethoscope. They'll have a portable ultrasound in their hand, connected to a smartphone. They'll be able to scan people in real time. Also, they don't need to be trained. The scan would just pick up the pictures in AI, say, that's what the diagnosis is, doctor, off you go make a decision. It makes sense, all right? We don't train as many people. So here's some companies, for example. Busfly, you've heard of, great company, creating, hopefully in the future, an AI system based on ultrasound, okay? And of course, Dia also. So it's about diagnostics becoming automated using AI apparatus. Of course, now we're seeing a plethora of use examples in AI. Top left, this worked at Stanford, of course, showing that a chest X-ray can be diagnosed by an AI algorithm as good as one radiologist, better than one radiologist, but as good as two radiologists agreeing with the diagnosis. Much more powerful than human beings, okay? So we're looking at AI. We're looking at also Zebra, as you've seen before, an Israeli company who've got 9 solutions out there on the market today looking at images. And their whole concept of $1 a scan is what they're trying to push out. And they're using that already in America and other places, so you pay for their AI diagnosis. On the bottom right, Viz AI, with friends of mine working in the US and the UK, looking at strokes. How can you speed up stroke diagnosis and treatment? We know for strokes, the quicker you get treatment, whether it's thrombolysis or something else, depending on hemorrhagic versus embolic phenomenon, it's much faster. So in real time, it goes on your smartphone to a clinician who can then direct the treatment immediately. And of course, we know about pathology and dermatology. Clearly, it's images, pictures that are going to be used in AI in the future, and we see a lot of papers out there already in both disciplines that will be disrupted. This is a company I'm working with at the moment, based out of India and the UK, and we're looking at our own vision around musculoskeletal images. We know we miss fractures of the neck of the femur. Fractures are a huge burden of disease, but also misdiagnosis is a problem. So we're using smart algorithms to look at all images. We have access to over 1 million images at the moment. We've gone through most of them, annotated them to give you a real-time diagnosis. And the accuracy at the moment is at 97%. Okay? So actually, in reality, that could save a lot of potential misdiagnosis, a lot of morbidity, and ultimately reduce costs for a healthcare system. So this is what we've been doing over the last few years, and we'll be applying for one of those grants, of course, that the NHS might have to offer us in the future. But of course, my own specialty of colorectal surgery, I often do colonoscopy. And we know that polyps in the colon undergo a change, a transformation, what's called the adenocarcinoma sequence. You have a small polyp, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, and it becomes an invasive cancer. And my job as a surgeon is to remove the cancer for patients. That's what I do for a living. But what if those polyps are taken out earlier? We know they take them out earlier, you prevent the cancer diagnosis, but sometimes it's difficult to see them. So, and we have this sometimes with miss polyps. So have a look at this picture in a moment, and tell me whether you can see a polyp in the video. So on your right-hand side, okay, see if you can spot the polyp. Can you see it? You're all nodding. Of course you can't see it. Watch carefully. See it? Did you see it at the beginning? You did not see it at the beginning. No way. So the AI suddenly empowers even spot diagnosis during endoscopy. Now imagine if that was left alone. You discharge the patient. We don't see them again. That could become a polyp within 6 months, a cancer within about 18 months. Suddenly, you can see the benefit of kind of real-world application. And in fact, this is Medtronic. They released this 6 months ago. It's now being used as an adjunct for endoscopy. So this is real. When I said to you before, it was the hype. We're now in reality. This is the year of 2020. We're seeing real cases being pushed out with these kind of platforms. Of course, Google DeepMind are based in London, big company. You've seen the work they did around AlphaGo and beating out the world Go champion before, etc. And what are DeepMind doing? They did some great work in retinal scans, predicting retinopathy, for example, also predicting breast disease, and now they've got a whole thing around Streams. Streams is a platform predicting renal impairment in patients at the Royal Free Hospital using their own data. So the great stuff they're doing, and looking at mathematical modeling around what does AI actually mean, how does it work, what is that black box that we describe in AI, what is it all about, how do you configure it, make it better? What are those deep neural networks doing for us? So they're creating some noise around that. But of course, it didn't come out with just that. There's issues with that. Can we, slide? Oh, sorry, let's go back one. Sorry, go back. Okay, so if you took top left, there's issues around data acquisition. What you see is the ICO, our data kind of regulatory body, actually said they didn't comply with data protection laws. That's a huge problem. What that tells us is there's a huge problem with data, of course. And data is going to be the fundamental problem. We have to have a mature conversation with AI. It goes hand in hand. Who owns the data? How do you monetize it? How do you regulate data acquisition from patients? We've got it wrong at the moment. We give too much power to the companies. In the US, similarly, there's been huge issues around the US, raising this concern about tech companies taking that data. So we have to have a much more mature conversation about data, what it means, how you access it, etc. One of the things I actually proposed a while ago, I'll share this with you, about 2 years ago, was when in the UK, when we have a kind of, we talk about transplants, an organ donor, we have an organ donor card in our pocket, right? So people know that you've accepted that your kidneys might go to somebody else if you pass away. What about having a data donor card? So you've accepted levels of data, you keep a card, you sign off on an online form, they know that you're accepting data to be given at certain points. To who? It could be different people. It could be tech companies, it could be hospitals, it could be different insurance companies, whatever. But have we had that conversation? We haven't. So although AI is moving fast, we're lagging so far behind on regulation. So I've been working, I was actually part of the European Commission. I was one of the advisors to their kind of network for AI, and we produced some work around that, around regulation around AI. And now, of course, we've got the Turing Institute in the UK and others saying we need to have that conversation about AI and what it means in the future, particularly with data transfer. This is my own model. This is my thoughts around the future. Imagine a patient that comes to you with hemoptysis, that's coughing up blood, which is a sign of lung cancer. We know that, right? Normally, you'd go and see a doctor, make an appointment. That could take a few days, a few weeks in the UK, for example. What if you could go to a chatbot? here. And the chatbot itself would say, okay, let's ask the question, let's triage you very quickly, as we explained earlier. Suddenly, the triage works in your favor, and it looks at your risk scores and says to you, okay, based on what you've said, I think you should go for chest x-ray, for example, or you should go for tests. It sends you automatically to a hospital to have a chest x-ray on your left. That x-ray is reported automatically by the AI that we saw earlier, yes, with high sensitivity. It says, okay, but you need a biopsy. It's been reported, we think you need a biopsy. So you go for a biopsy. The biopsy is done by an AI robot. This is Auris, a company based out in the US. What they do, they navigate your 3D your scans, allow you to navigate automatically to the biopsy area, take the biopsy without you almost being involved. Okay, far more precise. It's hard to sometimes locate which bronchiole it's gone to, where that tumor might be. Takes a biopsy. Then, of course, that biopsy goes to a pathologist. It's an AI pathologist, reports it immediately within a few seconds, saying, actually, this is what it is. It's a well-differentiated adenocarcinoma, for example. And then you're sent for treatment. So the doctor only gets involved at that point. Oh, should we go back there? 1 second, let's go back there. So this is the kind of, so let's talk about that. So that treatment, sorry, it's a bit slow here. Is that stopping? Let's go forward once. Okay, so that treatment might require surgery. Coming to someone like me, for example, take out a lump. The future of surgery is going to be interesting. Surgery is ripe for disruption. We're going to see the new way of working with 3D printing, with our interfaces, with more data analytics, making outcomes more objective. This is the kind of image that you might have recognized. This is actually from the Dubai Futures Museum. This was showcased at the World Government Summit last year, which I went to. This is what you see, that new building down the road, in that beautiful building in about a year's time for Expo 2020. So when we look at that, how do we change the operating theatre? Again, think about that theatre experience changing. It'll be voice activated, Alexa in every room. You'll be accessing information. The Who checklist will be done automatically through visual computing, but also through voice-activated systems. This company I've been advising. So remember when you're counting instruments, you've seen that, right? You count instruments, you count them again, you count them again. It's very manual process, yes? And sometimes we leave things behind. We leave a swab in the tummy. We leave a scalpel blade in the brain. You know, we do these things, right? When it seems crazy. But we check and check manually. What about if you just use computer vision? Took a picture, bang. What's missing? Tell you immediately what's missing straight away, rather than counting, recounting. So we're creating whole software around computer vision and AI algorithms telling you exactly in real time what's going on in the operating theatre, and relaying that information through a voice-enabled system, telling real time what's going on to the rest of the staff. That communication is so vital, often missing in the OR. And of course, 2020, as I explained before, is the reality, and now we're seeing more and more robots come into the equation. We're seeing robots becoming smaller, more sophisticated, and more data-driven. And we're seeing the most amazing technologies now, which is amazing for us as surgeons. We've got ability now to do some more difficult operations in pelvis, for example, for me, for cancer work. And you see these kind of things coming out. The robots are just automated systems, okay? They just help you. There has to be more to robots than just that, for example. And we can move on from that, of course. This is the new kind of digital surgery future for us. And digital surgery is a term, like digital health. What we're seeing now is all these, the technology pillars that will support digital surgery. We're looking at not just about the robotics themselves, visualization, etc. Now we're looking at data and analytics. Can you visualize things? Can you show me how you're getting on hand movements? What's the precise element of your outcomes? Also, of course, it'll analyze pictures for you, annotate drawings, show you where things are. It'll show you actually don't go to that structure, that's where this is, that's dangerous, come over here. It repeats the steps for you automatically. And for what we're doing here, this is the UK digital surgery company. A few friends of mine who've just raised 60 million, actually, for the next round, are actually looking at real time. So in the operating theatre, as you're doing, say, laparoscopic surgery, there's a box in front of you. It tells you where everything is. That's stomach, this is this. As you're doing it, it says, okay, this is bit's done. Next steps for the nurse. Can you get these ready for him? He's ready, or her. He's ready for the next step. Get them ready for the next step. It predicts. It tells you to stop when it thinks it's been dangerous. So suddenly, it's real-time analytics, and almost like a surgical navigator to help you. We've never had that before. We've never had that before. We relied on intuition, knowledge, and kind of probably experience. But sometimes, say you're inexperienced, it's the first time you've done an operation, or it's second time, some navigation will be helpful, which you never had before. So suddenly AI becomes a real entity in the operating theatre. And of course, we know about autonomous cars and the way they work, and the future's going to be autonomous and driverless cars. What about driverless surgeons, driverless doctors being assisted and supported by AI? So what we're looking now, of course, is these kind of robots coming in, doing operations for you in real time. Yes, suddenly the elements that we think we can't be replaced with will be augmented by simple robots in the future. But of course, when we think about this concept of being remote, and about 20 years ago, 2001, the first transatlantic surgery was performed. A lady in France was operated on by someone in America using the old ISDN lines. Can you remember that? Can you imagine trusting those lines back in 2001? But now we have 5G, of course. We can have 5G connectivity with a speed of 1.5 gigabytes per second and a latency of 0.1 milliseconds. Suddenly, imagine this being done remotely. Maybe AI supporting the diagnosis, supporting the surgeon remotely. So that future is going to be quite exciting in the operating theatre. Next part is about the human interaction. The last bit about AI and where we're going in the future. Think about this. That interaction will have to change. We can't afford the human-to-human contact. It's too expensive, and it's too time-consuming. We've got to think differently. So this is what I think about in the future. We're going to be creating our own digital twins, okay? We're recreating ourselves, okay? And this is a company called Soul Machines, if it plays. Taking a person, using photogrammetry. I have my own digital person, which I've created, okay, which we'll show you in a few months' time. It'll talk like me. It'll have AI in the back end. It could teach many people around the world. It could be transported around the world just using simple technology. So what about, would you trust an AI kind of digital person to be your doctor?
Hi, I'm Roman, a digital human brought to life by Soul Machines. With me, you can experience AI like never before because I learn and react emotionally like humans do.
So at what point do you think we're going to be accepting something different than a human being the first point of contact in healthcare? Now, some of you may shake your head, of course, but actually we must have to go down the pathway. The chatbot already is the first point of contact and will be the first point of contact. How do you replace people? If that empathy becomes more realistic, will you be happy with it? What is that whole thing about? These are the conversations we have to have at the moment. It's coming, we have to have the conversations, not shy away from the difficult parts of how we go forward. And of course, people talk about this concept of AI replacing doctors. And this quote is quite often true, and John will know this, of course, and share this. So AI won't replace a doctor. But a doctor who doesn't use AI will be replaced, guaranteed. So you better get with the conversation, because it's coming, and you need to have the understanding of where we are in this world. Last two slides. Shameless plugging. I've got a book coming out explaining the whole of technology and my experience over the last 5 years. It'll come out in a couple of months' time, so please feel free to reach out to me through LinkedIn, and I'll give you a free copy at some point. But it's trying to, my piece is this. Most of us in this room are probably that 1%, people who innovate, who want to be the early adopters. Our mission has to be the 99% of people and patients who don't understand this. Translate, have that conversation, make it less frightening for people. The tech is coming in, it's there to enable better healthcare system around the world. And that's very important for us as a community, and that's what my book will address, the fundamental knowledge transfer across peace. I'll leave you the last slide to invite you to a conference that I run in Valencia, because it's all about this world that we live in and bring tech as part of the equation, as an enabler, more about society as a whole. So join me in Valencia in June. It is enormous. It's a city within a city.
We are here to actually write down what the desirable futures are.
Together we can make it better.
And we have to exercise our responsibility as citizens of the world and citizens of the digital world, because we are all digital natives.
We can design futures we all want to live in.
The future is in your hands, so it's up to you.
This Webbit edition sends a very clear message for the future of Europe.
progress depends on people like us.
I don't have to travel to their country. I can just come here to web it, and then all the countries come to me.
There's never been a better time to be an innovator. Immense possibilities for how we can build a better world.
Webit is legendary.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for Dr. Shafi Ahmed for that innovative presentation. My, oh my, I'm glad to see the number ever increasing.